In the shadowy halls of justice, a chilling case unfolds. The courtroom is tense, the air thick with anticipation. This is case number 12-CR-7843.
Plan? No, it wasn't a plan, it was a calling. Do you think I stumbled into this? That it just happened? I prepared them, shaped them, gave them exactly what they were too blind to ask for, and it was sexual.
The courtroom falls silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air.
Deny it? Why would I? My father's last breaths. God, they were delicious. Watching his chest rise and fall, his eyes begging for something I'd never give him. It was like holding his very soul in my hands. And my brother. He was so quiet at the end, so still. He became my masterpiece. How could I ever deny something so breathtaking?
The prosecutor begins the questioning, his voice steady but laced with underlying tension. Prosecutor, Miss Harper, let's discuss the events leading up to your family's deaths. Did you knowingly and intentionally plan their murders?
Plan? No, it wasn't a plan. It was a calling. Do you think I stumbled into this, that it just happened? I prepared them, shaped them, gave them exactly what they were too blind to ask for, and it was sexual. Prosecutor, you poisoned your father, vacuum-sealed your brother alive, and staged your mother's death as a tragic accident. Are you denying this? Deny it? Why would I? My father's last breaths? God, they were delicious. Watching his chest rise and fall, his eyes begging for something I'd never give him. It was like holding his very soul in my hands. And my brother. He was so quiet at the end, so still. He became my masterpiece. How could I ever deny something so breathtaking? Of course, Your Honor. No theatrics. Just the truth. Though I suppose the truth is theatrical, isn't it? Especially when it's as beautiful as mine. Prosecutor, you referred to your brother Jacob as your favorite project in your journal. Would you care to explain? Jacob, he was pure, untouched by the filth of the world. That kind of innocence, it needed preserving. I couldn't let it rot away, couldn't let it be wasted. You don't see it, do you? The world is a parasite, and I saved him from it. I wrapped him in eternity. He didn't die, he transcended. Prosecutor, no, Miss Harper, I do not agree. Your actions were cruel and calculated. You robbed a child of his future. Future? His future was mediocrity, a slow death by apathy. I gave him purpose. I gave him a moment where he was mine and mine alone. Do you know what it's like to hold someone at the edge, to feel their body surrender beneath your hands, beneath your thighs? It's intoxicating. He's perfect now. Isn't that what every brother deserves? To be perfect? They were broken. All of them. Cracks everywhere, pieces falling apart, held together by nothing but habit and silence. I couldn't stand it. So I fixed them. Don't you understand the joy in that? The intimacy of remaking something with your own hands, of pulling them apart just to put them back together in a way that sings? Defense attorney? And you don't believe that was wrong? Wrong? No. Wrong would have been letting them go on like that, soulless, purposeless. I gave them meaning. I gave them me. I made them beautiful in a way they never could have been without my touch. Do you know what it feels like to touch someone's truth? To peel back everything false and leave only what's real? Prosecutor? Let's move on to the other victims, Miss Harper. Over a dozen individuals, friends, lovers, strangers, fell prey to your so-called art. Why? What drove you to such unspeakable acts? Why does a painter pick up a brush? Why does a sculptor chip away at stone? I wanted to feel them, to make them immortal. You call it unspeakable, but you've never seen it, have you? The moment when they stop fighting, when their bodies give in, when you become the only thing left in their world. It's kind of like being God, I think. Prosecutor, these were people, Miss Harper. Not canvases, not materials. They were human beings with families, lives, futures. And what did they do with those futures? They wasted them. Numb, blind, moving through life without purpose. I gave them purpose. I made them sing. I made them eternal. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because deep down you know I'm right. Judge Blackwood, Miss Harper, I've heard enough. You speak of your crimes as though they were acts of art. as though you elevated suffering into something noble. Let me remind you, this court deals in facts, not your warped perception of reality. Facts? The only fact is that I made something you'll never forget. Long after this court is dust, they'll whisper my name, not yours. That's not warped, it's truth. And truth? Oh, truth is delicious. Prosecutor Miss Harper is a predator, Your Honor. A remorseless killer who sees human life as nothing more than a tool for her own twisted gratification. She has shown no remorse, no regret. The only justice for her crimes is the maximum penalty allowed by law. Defense attorney Miss Harper's actions are the result of a deeply disturbed mind. She is unwell, trapped by the horrors of her past. I urge the court to consider life imprisonment with mandatory psychiatric care over the death penalty. Life imprisonment? Psychiatric care? Do you think you can fix me? I don't need fixing. I've already transcended what you call morality, but please do whatever makes you feel righteous. I'll be waiting. Immortal. Judge Blackwood. Miss Harper, your crimes are beyond comprehension. You have not only taken lives but desecrated them in ways that defy humanity itself. You have shown no remorse, no capacity for redemption. It is the decision of this court that you be sentenced to death by lethal injection. May you find the mercy in death that you so cruelly denied your victims. Death is just another canvas. Let's see what I can do with it.
The execution sequence began with a somber air, a moment that had been anticipated by many. Dwana Harper, the woman who had brought fear and chaos, was now facing her final reckoning. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. It was a sterile, unremarkable place, designed to strip the moment of any personal meaning, reducing death to a mere procedure. But for Dwana, even this would become a stage. The execution chamber was silent, save for the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. It was an unremarkable room, sterile and devoid of character, a place meant to strip the moment of any meaning, to reduce death to a procedure. But for Dwana Harper, even this would become a stage. The guards escorted her into the chamber, their grips firm but wary, as though they expected her to lash out. But Dwana didn't resist. She walked with her head held high, her green prison uniform hanging loosely on her slender frame. Her dark hair had grown longer during her time on death row, and it framed her face in loose waves, her eyes alight with the same calm, unsettling confidence she had carried throughout her trial. The witnesses, family members of her victims, journalists and officials, sat behind the glass, their faces a mix of anger, relief, and morbid curiosity. They wanted to see her suffer, to see the infamous Dwana Harper brought to justice. But as she was strapped onto the gurney, she looked at them not with fear, but with amusement. The warden stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed her.
Dwana Harper, you have been sentenced to death by lethal injection for the murders of over a dozen individuals. Do you have any final words?
Dwana smiled faintly, her gaze sweeping over the witnesses behind the glass. She could see the anger in their eyes, the grief, the desperate need for closure. It amused her. They thought this would be the end.
You're all here because of me. You'll go home tonight and tell your children, your friends, your lovers that you saw me die. But do you know what the funny part is?
She paused, letting the silence stretch, her smile widening.
I'll live longer in your minds than anyone you've ever loved. Long after you've forgotten their names, you'll remember mine.
The warden's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, giving a signal to the executioner. The witnesses erupted into murmurs, some shouting, others silent with fury. Dwana, however, closed her eyes, as if savoring the chaos. The executioner pushed the first button, releasing a sedative into Dwana's veins. Her breathing slowed, her body relaxing against the restraints, but her lips remained curled in that faint, maddening smile. The second injection followed, a paralytic that froze her muscles. Her chest stopped rising, her eyes fluttering open for a brief moment, locking onto the glass. Even in paralysis, she seemed to radiate control, as though this moment belonged to her. The final injection, potassium chloride, stopped her heart. The monitor beside the gurney flatlined with a piercing beep, and the room fell silent. They checked her pulse.
Time of death, 8:43 p.m.
The witnesses watched, some with tears streaming down their faces, others with grim satisfaction. The guards began unstrapping her body, preparing it for removal, but as they worked, a guard whispered to his partner.
She doesn't look scared, even now, like she wanted this.
One of the family members of her victims, a woman whose sister had been one of Dwana's projects, pressed her hand against the glass.
Is it over?
She whispered more to herself than anyone else. No one answered. Hours later, as Dwana's body was being transported to the morgue, the coroner swore he saw something impossible. Her lips, those cold, lifeless lips, twitched into a faint smile. The story spread among the guards and prison staff, whispered in hushed tones. Some dismissed it as imagination, others as a trick of the light. But those who had seen it could never shake the feeling that Dwana Harper had gotten exactly what she wanted, and somewhere, deep in the recesses of the morgue, her preserved body lay waiting, motionless, eternal. I'll live longer in your minds than anyone you've ever loved. Like, comment, subscribe, and ring the notification bell.